William Afton, Purple Guy, Springtrap! I don't think it would be a stretch to say that this guy is easily one of the most famous and recognizable FNAF characters in the series, next to Freddy Fazbear, who himself, let's face it, isn't really a character. When Springtrap was unveiled in FNAF 3, he absolutely captured people's imaginations. Like, the concept of being stuffed into a suit had always been there from the first game, but here we got to see it. And the obsession over old Springy Boy hasn't gone away, since people are still making new renders of him, discussing him, featuring him in animation. As far as FNAF stardom goes, this guy is the Johnny Cage of the cast. But ever since he was introduced, something has slowly crept into the back of my mind over the years. And it's the idea that even though Afton is a prolific character within the series, and nearly every part of the story is affected by him or set into motion by him, he is strangely misused, or, you know what, no, he's not misused, he is wasted. Now, I know that saying a character who appears in pretty much every single game is wasted is a bit of a controversial opinion, but I want you to hear me out because I'm talking about fan service versus good storytelling. It's a completely different thing for Springtrap to just show up versus Springtrap being there for a reason. Today we're talking about the kind of wasted that, say, Captain America would be if he showed up for 5 minutes in Infinity War before getting killed by Thanos. Like, your favorite character is here, right? Yay! But did he live up to the actual legend of the character? No. This is kind of how I feel about how William Afton Springtrap has been treated, and we'll talk about why this is by talking about the game series before Springtrap was introduced and the game series after Springtrap was introduced. So FNAF 1 and 2 is where the legend of the funny purple man begins. In the first game, you're just a guy working the night security shift, and you spend that shift defending yourself from haunted animatronics. But the question that really came out of this first game was the why. Why are these animatronics haunted? Who's Golden Freddy? Why would you want to stay 5 nights at Freddy's? Is this where? And with these questions came thorough investigations of the game, where we learned of the dark and secret history of the failing mascot pizzeria. The one detail from the first game that we need to focus on to first talk about Purple Guy is that randomly through the nights, this piece of paper would turn into old news articles which tell the story of what's going on with the animatronics. And that story was pretty much that some kids went missing in a restaurant, a man was arrested, and they had to let him go since no bodies were found. And while we didn't know his name at the time, this man was William Afton, and in FNAF 2 we get a further expansion upon his character, with Afton showing up in secret minigames sporting his purple look. And after we found out that FNAF 2 was a prequel, some pieces began to fall into place. Near the end of the second game, the newly reopened pizzeria falls into chaos as Phone Guy explains to you on night 6.
Hello, what on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
With the evidence we had, we were able to connect that whoever used the suit was probably driving the mysterious purple car, and whoever drove that was most likely the suspect referred to in the original newspaper clippings. They all had to be the same person. Once again, the legend of the man that started this all was built up further, but nothing could prepare us for 5 Nights at Freddy's 3 when we actually got to meet the guy. Set decades in the future, all the animatronics are now scrap, and surrounded by the legends of hauntings, ghosts, and murderers. So much so that you now take on the role of a security guard not in a pizzeria, but instead a haunted house attraction based around the dark past of Fazbear's. The first night goes off without a hitch, mostly because there's no animatronics left. That is until the company that owns the attraction discovers one from decades past.
We found one. A real one. Gotta go, man. Well, look, it's in there somewhere. I'm sure you'll see it.
This is where we meet Springtrap, and seeing him on camera for the first time is a kind of weird mix of feelings. For one, it's just a single animatronic, like we haven't had to manage 4 or even 11 times that before. But there's also that slight sense of dread, that question that lingers in the back of your mind with it being, what makes this guy so special? And that question is soon answered with it being simply that he doesn't act like an animatronic. In FNAF 3, a big part of the game is straight up finding Springtrap on the cameras in the first place. He'll make it hard for you by hiding around corners, blending in with the attraction, or sometimes he even tries to slip between the blind spots on the camera. This isn't some rage-driven haunted animatronic with just a simple grip on its own situation. This is strategic, it's intelligent, and this fact is driven home more by the fact that Springtrap Springtrap spends a lot of time toying with you. If Springtrap decides not to hide on the cameras, then he actually spends a lot of time staring directly into the cameras. He wants you to know that he's aware that you're watching. Or if he gets close to your office, sometimes you can catch him just staring at you through the window, peeking around a corner, or literally walking past you. It's strange behavior that's only compounded the more you see him on the cameras. As time ticks on, you'll slowly observe the animatronic from all angles, and you'll begin to realize that there's something inside the suit. Something fleshy. It's only at the end of the game that all answers are revealed. Decades earlier, the Purple Man from games past had gone to the original FNAF 1 location and destroyed all of the animatronics. But what came out of the animatronics were the vengeful spirits of his victims. Trying to hide from them, he took refuge inside a springlock suit. In the cutscene, we watch everything click into place as we realize that this isn't any ordinary animatronic. This is William Afton, the killer that started all of this. He's a very experienced murderer that's back from the dead and pissed off about it. That's why he's so different from the other animatronics. That's why his movements are so informed, so purposeful. Also, just to drop a little note in here, I'm not trying to push the narrative that Springtrap's debut game is perfect. Despite the game's best efforts, it's very easy to just trick Springtrap into standing in one corner for pretty much the whole night for the entire week. And once you find out how to mess with him, the game gets very, well, unscary. But that's not the point. I think Springtrap as a character has always stuck with me all these years because of the initial shock and wonder of finding out that this yellow Bonnie suit is occupied by a rotting corpse. Just the questions I had. Who is he? How did this happen? They were all so interesting, and pairing that with the equally interesting answers, you have a star character on your hands. Anyway, so at the end of FNAF 3, our character burns down Fazbear Frights, but we can still see in the last newspaper shot that Springtrap is still hanging around. But alas, we now reach our main junction point in this video. We've covered the build-up of Afton's lore in the first two games. We've covered his debut and the promise of what was to come, but we now reach a point where the opinions of the community began to differ. When FNAF 4 came out, the drastic change in the gameplay and even the way the story was told led to rabid fan speculation to which there seemed no concrete answer. It's my opinion that the ambiguity that FNAF 4 brought to the timeline opened up a new direction. Scott didn't need to commit to any pre-planned story because no one could figure out what just happened. And through the next few games, the series noticeably shifted in terms of storytelling. The story was now much more overt, with a clearer direction. However, the clarity brought answers which affected the overall tone of the series. They applied a science to the hauntings through substances like Remnant and Agony being introduced in the books. We were finally getting the answers we wanted, but somehow many of them just didn't seem to gel with the old stuff. And personally, I feel like this hit Springtrap the hardest, with him being an extremely popular character that unfortunately did not fit the brightening tone of the series. The next time we see Afton is when he shows up as Scraptrap in Pizzeria Simulator, and he is fucking ugly.
Holy God, what are you showing me?
Now, this whole Scraptrap is a downgrade discussion is one that's been done to death, so I'm going to leave it alone, mostly because I want to talk about the beginning of a little saga I like to call Afton is Unbelievably Stupid. Pretty much what makes Springtrap so exciting to me is that he's not just doing this out of a foggy sense of vengeance like the others. He's fully conscious of his predicament, and he's just kind of a bad dude, so naturally he should kind of be different gameplay wise. Well, no, not really. For all of his individualizing traits, Afton falls into the same pile as the rest of the animatronics in the game. But for anyone who's played Pizzeria Simulator, the game ends with everybody being cremated as the building is set on fire. And this is where things get a little bit weird. Through some magic writing, Afton's soul ends up on a circuit board which allows him to possess Vanessa in FNAF VR. He then gets transferred back into a real body, with that being Burntrap near the end of FNAF Security Breach, where he tries to take control of Glamrock Freddy before getting killed by the amalgamation thingy animatronic vengeful spirits bullshit. And no, please do not write an essay in the comments about how Burntrap is not William Afton, because I'm going to be honest, I don't care. I used to be very invested in this series and all the theories that came out of it until they just stopped making any sense. So these days I just kind of view the series from a casual enjoyer perspective. I see a dead body inside a yellow Bonnie suit, the color purple, I will associate with Afton. Like, based on what I know about the series, shouldn't that be enough? Shouldn't all those associations be enough for me to connect that this is that character? Why do I need to go read a novel just to go figure out that no, it's an animatronic pretending to be William Afton? Anyway, now that we have all of this out of the way, let's just talk about how dirty Springtrap has been done in these games since his debut. And I think the best way to really focus in on this point is to talk about Springtrap's master plan. Oh wait, he doesn't have one. Something I think does Springtrap a huge disservice is that he is the big bad and yet he has nothing to do. For all of his cunning and intelligence in FNAF 3, he does the sum total of fuck all with it through the series. Like, if you really think about it, he failed to kill the security guard in FNAF 3, was lured to the pizzeria in FNAF 6, faced endless torment in Ultimate Custom Night, and then jumped through a million digital hoops to possess Vanessa so that he could come back as Burntrap, so that he could do what? Kill Gregory? Because newsflash, he didn't do that either, and he got killed again. We've seen Afton do a lot of coming back and resurrecting himself in this series, but every time he shows up, he never manages to do anything, which I think kind of hurts his credibility as this series' big bad. And I believe that this might be a symptom of, and I know this has been said over and over again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but a symptom of the fact that this series is veering more towards kids. Afton literally cannot reach his full potential because two of the things that make him a famous character in this universe, one being he's a child murderer, and two being that he's a rotting corpse, literally stuck inside a suit, they don't really gel well with the kid-friendly vibe. If you really look at this series as a whole, there's no reason Springtrap should be held up in any sort of regard, because every time he shows up, he gets his ass kicked into an even worse state than he was in before. Now, usually nearing the ends of my criticism type videos, I like to try and think up a solution for whatever I'm droning on about. However, today I'm sad to say I don't think there is one. Springtrap is a character who continues to exist in a series due to his popularity, just minus any of his hinted at capabilities. The truth is that poor Afton is a relic of a time when Five Nights at Freddy's was something entirely different. And as the series drifts more towards robots and the science behind souls, a character as dark as Springtrap's cannot truly exist in the way that he deserves. My solution is leave Afton in the series past. If anything, it hurts the credibility of the series every time they wheel out Afton's corpse for another punch-up, because you start to realize, no matter how much this guy schemes and plans, he's always getting his ass kicked. Considering that this guy is the only reason any of this is happening, he's pretty fucking stupid.
2 seconds later.
I would honestly rather see the character get put away for good rather than see a shadow of what Springtrap was meant to be just show up and get bested again every couple of years. I'd love it if the new FNAF embraced its vision for what it wants to be and just let go of what it knows no longer fits that vision. But let's be honest, all of these wishes are gonna probably fall on deaf ears. Springtrap is a cash cow for FNAF, and they're not going to let him go. I really don't think that Springtrap is going to do anything cool in the movie, and I don't think he's ever going to do anything cool in any other medium ever again. Because as we all know, unfortunately, he always comes back.
Characters here do get a bit quirky at night.